The strongest trees grow in silence. No spotlight, no applause, no constant validation from the crowd. Just steady roots pushing deeper into the earth, unseen, uncelebrated, but unstoppable. That's how real transformation happens. In today's world, silence feels unnatural. We've been conditioned to share everything, every goal, every step, every tiny achievement. If no one sees it, did it really happen? If no one claps, was it even worth doing? But growth doesn't need a witness to be real. Some of the most powerful chapters of your life will be the ones nobody reads, except you. The truth is, silence isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It's a choice to rise without announcing, to build without bragging, to heal without explaining. It's knowing that the work you're doing, though hidden, is holy. I've spoken to people who felt discouraged because they weren't getting recognition. They were doing the right things, making the hard choices, building better habits, and yet no one seemed to notice. And I'd remind them gently, you're not doing it for applause, you're doing it for alignment. You see, winning in silence isn't about hiding, it's about protecting. Protecting your focus from the noise, protecting your peace from distraction, protecting your calling from voices that don't understand it. There is power in silence, the kind of power that builds unshakable foundations. Not fast fame, but lasting character. Not temporary hype, but quiet, steady excellence. Think of the seed underground. For weeks, maybe months, it pushes against the darkness. No one sees the effort, no one praises its progress. But the day it breaks through the soil, everyone notices the flower. What they don't see is the silent struggle that came before it. That's your journey too. So if you're in a season where you're growing, learning, rebuilding, but no one sees it yet, don't panic. Don't give up. You're not invisible, you're just underground. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly where your strength is being formed. Because those who learn to grow in silence, they are the ones who will stand the tallest when it's time to rise. Noise is not proof of progress. We live in an age where being loud is mistaken for being strong, where the one who talks the most is seen as the leader, where constant updates are confused with momentum. But true greatness doesn't need to shout. It simply is. Sometimes the loudest voice in the room is also the most insecure. People boast when they need validation. They perform when they feel unsure. They seek the spotlight not because they're full, but because they're empty. Their volume is a disguise. Their performance is a cover. But the one who knows where they're going, they walk quietly. They don't argue with every critic. They don't explain every move. They don't have time to put on a show because they're too busy doing the work. Loud people win attention. Quiet people win results. And over time, results speak louder than any voice ever could. I once met a man who ran a small business, quietly growing it over the years, while others around him flashed their money, their cars, their numbers. They mocked his slow pace. But when the market shifted, he was the only one still standing. His roots were deep. His systems were sound. His growth was real. The loud had collapsed, but the silent builder had just begun to rise, because you see, when you build in silence, you build without the pressure to please. You don't have to defend your choices. You're not trapped by the expectations of an audience. You're free. Free to fail privately, free to adjust quietly, free to grow at your own pace. The loud may rise fast, but they often fall just as quickly. Why? Because noise fades. Hype, applause moves on. And when all that disappears, only the quietly built things remain. So be still. Let others race for attention. Let them chase trends. You You're building something deeper, something lasting, something the world will one day notice, not because you shouted, but because you endured. And when that day comes, when your quiet work finally speaks, it won't sound like noise, it will sound like peace, it will sound like purpose, it will sound like truth. You are never truly alone when you are in the company of your purpose. Solitude scares people, not because they fear being by themselves, but because in the silence all distractions are gone, and what's left is you. Just you, your thoughts, your past, your hopes, your regrets, and your deepest desires staring you straight in the heart. But it's in that very stillness where strength is born. Solitude is not punishment, it's preparation. It is where you meet the real version of yourself, the one you don't show on social media, the one who doesn't need applause to breathe, the one who is growing quietly day by day in private conversations with God, with pain, with memory, and with hope. Some of the world's most powerful ideas were born not in boardrooms or stages, but in quiet rooms with no audience. Think of the writer who stayed up long nights with only a lamp and a blank page, the teacher who prayed before her first day in class, the soldier who sat with trembling hands before his mission. They were alone, but they were not abandoned, because solitude is sacred. When no one is watching, you can be honest. You can confess your fears. You can dream without judgment. You can cry and pray and rebuild, all without having to wear a mask. I remember once being in a small cabin in the woods, no signal, no noise, just the whisper of the trees and my own breathing. And in that stillness, I heard something I hadn't heard in years, my own clarity. Not the voices of others, not expectations, just a still small voice saying you're doing better than you think. Just keep going. You see, the world is loud, but your soul is quiet. And unless you get alone, you'll never hear what it's trying to tell you. So don't run from solitude. Don't rush to fill every quiet space with noise. Some of your greatest strength will be born in the stillness. Some of your greatest ideas will visit you in the silence. And some of your deepest healing will begin when you finally stop and listen. In a world that constantly pulls you outward, dare to go inward, because the one who knows how to stand strong in solitude is the one who cannot be shaken in the. What you do when no one is watching becomes who you truly are. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't trend. It rarely gets applause. But behind every truly unstoppable person, there's 1,000 silent moments where they chose what was right instead of what was easy. No cameras, no cheering crowd. Just one person, alone, showing up anyway. You see, the world celebrates results, but it forgets the routine. They admire the mountaintop, but they rarely ask about the climb. They see the success, but they didn't witness the sacrifices. Waking up early when your bed is warm, saying no to distractions when no one would blame you if you gave in. Doing the hard thing again without needing to be praised for it. That's discipline. That's devotion. That's where the real transformation takes root. I met a young man once who had nothing, no degrees, no influence, no one believing in him. But he made a vow, I will improve myself every single day, even if no one sees it. For years he kept his promise. Quietly, he read while others partied, he trained while others complained, he served while others showed off. And eventually the world noticed. But by then, he didn't need their approval. He had already become the person he dreamed of. Because here's the truth. Discipline is not something you talk about. It's something you prove in silence over time. It's brushing off failure and trying again. It's doing your best even when no one's watching. It's the courage to keep building even when the progress is slow. And if you ever feel like your efforts don't matter because no one sees them, Remember this: God sees them, your future sees them, your character is being shaped by them. So don't underestimate the power of those small unseen choices. They're not small, they're everything. The world may never see the mornings you rose in pain, the nights you fought off doubt, the tears you wiped away before standing up again. But those moments are sacred, and in the quiet they are building something unstoppable in you. Keep going, because the discipline no one sees today will become the life everyone respects tomorrow. A dream spoken too soon can die in the noise. There's something sacred about a dream when it's still small, still forming, still tender and raw. In that early stage, it doesn't need exposure, it needs protection. But in today's world, the first thing we're told to do is announce it, post it, share it, show the world you're about to build something big. And yet so many dreams never make it past that point, because the moment you share your dream too early, it becomes open to opinions, to questions, to doubt. And the very people you thought would cheer you on may be the ones who weaken your conviction, not because they're evil, but because they don't carry your vision. They weren't meant to. Your dream is a seed, and seeds don't grow in public. They grow in dark, silent soil, covered and protected until their roots are strong enough to face the sun. Some of the world's greatest breakthroughs came from people who kept their dreams hidden for years, not because they lacked faith, but because they knew how precious it was. They watered it in silence. They worked on it in solitude. They fought for it when no one was watching. It's not secrecy, it's stewardship. You don't talk about the building until the foundation is strong. You don't unveil the painting until the brushstrokes are ready. You don't expose your soul until it's been prepared for the wind. When I began to write, I didn't tell many people, not because I was ashamed, but because I knew the voice God placed inside me needed time to grow root. And had I exposed it too soon to noise, to comparison, to criticism, it may never have blossomed. So I say this with love: if you're working on something dear, don't be in a rush to show it. Let it grow in private. Let it mature in silence. Let it become so strong in your spirit that even if the world laughs, you'll keep going. Because dreams protected in silence often grow into realities that speak for themselves. You don't need a crowd to validate your vision. You just need the courage to protect and the patience to wait for the right moment to reveal it, when it's ready to stand, not just to be seen. Until then, build quietly, because what you're nurturing in silence today may one day change someone's life, including your own. Real growth happens long before anyone claps for you. If you're waiting for applause to feel validated, you'll never feel whole. The truth is, most of the moments that define your growth will come without recognition, without celebration, without even a kind word. And yet, those are the moments that matter most. Growth is not glamorous. It's slow, uneven, and deeply personal. It happens in quiet decisions, the ones no one notices, choosing discipline over ease, forgiveness over bitterness, purpose over popularity. And each time you make that choice, something inside you expands, strength deepens, peace grows. But because it happens silently, it's easy to doubt it's happening at all. You may look around and feel like no one sees the effort. No one sees the late nights, the early mornings, the quiet prayers, the hard conversations with yourself. And you're right, most of them don't. But growth is not a performance. It's a process. And processes aren't meant to be paraded. They're meant to be honored. There was a time in my life when I kept giving my best to people and places that gave little back. I'd wonder, is it worth it if no one sees it? But then I realized growth isn't for them. It's for me. Every time I chose to act with integrity, even when no one was watching, I was the one becoming stronger, more centered, more whole. And you're doing better than you think. Don't let the silence fool you. It's not a sign of failure. It's often the sound of progress. You won't always get a trophy, but you will gain character. You won't always hear clapping, but you'll hear peace. You won't always be seen, but you'll know who you are, and that's a reward nothing external can match. So keep showing up. Not for applause, not for likes, but because every silent act of faithfulness is a seed, and in time, those seeds bloom into a life of quiet power. You don't need the noise. You need the roots. And those, my friend, are growing right now deep within you, even if no one else sees it. The moment you stop needing approval, you start living in power. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, that you won't always be understood. You won't always be praised. You won't always be recognized for the quiet, good things you do. But here's the good news: you don't need to be, because real peace begins where the need for validation ends. Many people live their whole lives chasing the nod of others, the compliment, the acknowledgement, the "you're doing great." But what happens when it doesn't come? What happens when your work goes unnoticed, your loyalty unappreciated, your effort overlooked? If your identity is built on being noticed, you'll crumble when you're ignored. But if your identity is built on truth, on purpose, on faith, on inner conviction, then silence can't shake you, because you didn't begin for the crowd, and you don't need the crowd to continue. I've seen people walk away from beautiful dreams simply because no one clapped for them. And I've also seen others quietly rise, not because they were pushed by fans, but because they were pulled by vision. They had a fire inside that wasn't fed by applause, it was fed by calling. You see, needing validation is like building your house on sand. It feels solid until the storm comes. But when your foundation is built on what you know is right, on the values and truths that guide your heart, you become unshakable. It's okay to want encouragement, that's human, but don't depend on it. Don't let someone's silence become the reason you stop, and don't let someone's disapproval be louder than your own inner peace. The greatest breakthroughs in your life will come when you no longer care if others notice you, because you've noticed yourself. You've seen the growth, you've felt the shift, you've honored the process, and that's more than enough. So today, if you're doing the right thing and it feels like no one sees it, keep going. If you're walking the quiet path and wondering if it matters, it does, because living without needing validation isn't cold, it's free. When you stop needing the world to approve you, you finally give yourself permission to be unstoppable. The loudest voice you'll ever have is the life you build in silence. You don't need to argue with critics. You don't need to prove your worth to people who never tried to understand you. And you certainly don't need to explain your journey to those who never walked beside you. Why? Because your results will speak for you. There's something deeply powerful about a person who doesn't boast, doesn't defend, doesn't rush to explain, and yet, over time, their life becomes undeniable proof of their effort, their discipline, and their faith. The world teaches us to announce everything. I'm about to do something big. But wise people know that talk is cheap, and real builders don't talk much, they build. Think about it. A tree never brags about its height, it simply grows. A river doesn't shout about its strength, it simply flows. In nature, power is rarely loud, it's steady, it's faithful. It shows up again and again and lets its presence become its message. You don't need to defend your process when the outcome is clear. You don't need to convince people you've changed when your character already shows it. Let them wonder what you're doing. Let them doubt. Let them whisper. That's okay, because one day they'll see the fruit. They'll see the results. And they'll understand, even if you never say a word. Years ago, I watched a young woman quietly transform her life. No grand posts, no declarations, just private decisions. Late nights of study, quiet mornings of prayer, little steps done consistently. And now she stands tall, confident, peaceful, and deeply rooted. Not because she talked about change, but because she became it. That can be your story too. Let your results speak louder than your explanations. Let your peace speak louder than your pride. Let your consistency become your reputation. Because when it's real, you don't need to promote it. Your life will do the talking, and the world, eventually it listens. The greatest success is being at peace when the world is in chaos. You may not have the loudest voice, you may not have the biggest following, you may not even be noticed. But if you have peace, real steady, unshakable peace, you are already winning in ways most people will never understand. Because in a world chasing more attention, more applause, more noise, peace is rare, and that makes it priceless. There's a reason stillness is so powerful. It's where you hear your deepest wisdom. It's where you stop fighting to be seen and start learning to be whole. And when peace enters your heart, you no longer chase validation, you walk in purpose. You no longer fear silence, you welcome it, because you found something the world can't give and it can't take away. True peace is not found in comfort, but in clarity. It's not about a life without problems. It's about a mind that no longer breaks under pressure. It's about knowing who you are, whose you are, and what matters most. I've sat across from men with millions in the bank and no rest in their soul. And I've also prayed beside those who had very little but a smile that came from somewhere deeper than circumstances. The difference, one chased noise, the other found peace. Peace doesn't mean you figured it all out, it just means you're no longer fighting battles that aren't yours. You're no longer driven by what others think. You're no longer ruled by fear. You've entered that sacred space where even failure can't shake you, because you know who's guiding you. And when storms come, as they always do, you're not frantic. You're focused, you're grounded. So let others boast, let them race, let them seek loud wins. You win quietly. Heal quiet, grow quietly, and above all, live with such inner peace that when people come near you, they feel it too. That's the loudest kind of victory there is. You don't need noise to be powerful, you just need to keep going. There will be days when it feels like nothing is working, when the progress is invisible, when the silence is heavy, when the doubts grow louder than your faith, and still you must build, not for attention, not for validation, but because there's a future waiting on the other side of your persistence. You see, the real strength lies not in the big moments, but in the quiet continuance. The decision to keep showing up when no one claps. The choice to keep believing when no one sees the change. The courage to keep building brick by brick even when the world doesn't notice. Some of the most extraordinary lives are built in ordinary silence. One prayer, one page, one habit, one good decision repeated without fanfare. Don't be discouraged by the slow pace. Don't let the quiet make you question your path. The foundation you're laying right now, the inner work, the character shaping, the mental strengthening, is forming something unshakable. Greatness isn't born from moments that look great. It's born in the hours no one records, in the decisions that go unnoticed, in the quiet battles you win in your own mind. There's a quiet glory in being consistent, a sacred honor in staying faithful. And when you look back one day, you won't remember the noise, you'll remember the days you almost gave up but did, the mornings you rose in silence and chose strength, the nights you laid down in peace knowing you had grown. So keep building, even if no one sees it now, even if no one claps, even if the results are slow. Because the reward of building in silence is not just success, it's becoming the kind of person who no longer needs the world to tell them they are enough. You already are. And when the world finally sees what you've built, they'll ask how you did, and you'll smile quietly. Because they weren't supposed to see the journey, they were meant to witness the result.